Hello, South Orange and Maplewood School District family. This is your Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Taylor. Welcome to our virtual town hall to discuss our return to school in a hybrid methodology. The purpose today is to update our community on our efforts and plan to return to our school buildings. We also want to provide families with information needed to make a final decision on the instructional model they will choose for their children for our January 2021 reopening to a hybrid in-person learning. So our agenda today is very robust. We just had our introduction. We'll also review key areas such as our HVAC and facilities, our health and safety, special services, technology, staffing, and of course, academic scheduling. And we'll give you, in closing, future events and updates. What returning to school will look like. Our plan reflects the recommendations of our Department of Education, Department of Health, and of course, CDC guidance. The majority of our reopening plan is the same as it was when we released it in August. To update our reopening, we're bringing your attention to our phased-in approach. As you can see from the slide on your screen, we are now currently in phase 1. We are all virtual. Our teachers are virtual, and our students are virtual. Phase 2 will begin in January with our teachers returning for a voluntary return to their classrooms. They will use this time to make their classrooms inviting for our students, and also we'll use that time to test out our connectivity to ensure that we don't have any blind spots as we prepare to project our lessons to the students who are at home. That voluntary portion of phase 2 will run from January the 11th until January the 12th. On January the 13th, all teachers and all school-based staff will have a mandatory return to our school buildings. That mandatory return will include our teachers continuing to broadcast their lessons to students who are at home. Phase 3 will begin on January the 19th. What's important to remember about phase 3 is that not all students are returning at the same time. This phased approach, as you see on your screen, starts with our pre-K students through 2nd grade. It also includes a middle school cohort for 6th graders, as well as 9th graders for Columbia High School. We will continue with our AA-BB cohort design. Because we are beginning on a Tuesday, January 19th reflects an A cohort day. Phase 4 is a full return of students whose families have selected the hybrid approach. That will begin on January the 25th. Phase 5 is a fully return to school for all students, which of course is not possible until the governor's executive orders are adjusted. At a glance, what returning to school will look like. Students and staff will return to schools with increased health and safety measures in order to combat the effects of COVID-19 in our schools. You will see changes in our transportation. You will see many more cleaning stations. Of course, our classrooms will be set up now to ensure social distancing. We will have masks that will be mandated throughout our schools, and we'll also have controlled movement. Last but not least, we won't be able to have meals served in our buildings. I will now shift to our lead nurse for our school district, Nurse Porter.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Hello, South Orange Maplewood School District families. My name is Julie Porter. I am the school nurse for South Mountain Annex. I am also the school nurse leader of a remarkable group of 12 school nurses. So I am going to start very quickly with a review of science that goes through why we are doing the things that we are doing. And I thank you very much for being part of the plan that returns teachers to teach and students to learn when we can in a safe and healthy environment. So just to remind you that the primary way that COVID-19 is spread is when the droplets come out of people's noses and mouths when they speak, sing, cough, sneeze. Therefore, the mitigating strategy will be to wear masks. The other way is that if some of those droplets do come out of the mask, then the concentration does decrease over time and space, and the amount of space is 6 feet according to the CDC. So social distancing will be 6 feet. We could also get the virus if we touch something that had the virus on it. Usually that would be wet, and that would be a surface or maybe an object or somebody else. So for that reason, we will do plenty of hand hygiene. The cleaning and disinfecting protocol will be beefed up, and we also will not be able to do much touching. So those are the mitigating strategies and the science behind why we do it. And now I will start with masks. Masks are required for students and staff. And if it might inhibit the individual's health, then there are two things that are required. We need a doctor's note, and we need to have the district physician approve that doctor's note. Teachers, you would give the doctor's note to your principal or your supervisor, and parents, you would give the doctor's note to the student. Anybody who cannot wear a mask for a medical reason, until that approval is done by the district physician, then your education will be done virtually. Any individual that refuses to wear a mask, their education will be done virtual. That's a nice way of saying that you will not enter the building without a mask. Short mask breaks for students may be incorporated into the schedule as feasible, but only when social distancing can be maintained. This is per NJDOH, and it was updated in November of 2020. We have gotten a little more strict about mask breaks. We recommend that the time is no more than 5 minutes indoors, ideally with windows open, and no more than 10 minutes outdoors. Parents, teachers, please have multiple masks if you can. Disposable masks are okay, but cloth masks are very comfortable, more economical. You could be wearing one while there's one ready and clean at home to wear the next day. So the next slide, please. And for this slide, I am going to don my mask and demonstrate proper mask wearing. And hopefully you can hear me through my cloth mask. How to select a mask. Do choose masks that have 2 or more layers of washable, breathable fabric. The inside layer takes any of my spit, and the outside layer protects me from anybody else's. Completely cover your nose and mouth, and it should fit snugly against the sides of your face without gaps. Do not choose masks that are made of fabric that is difficult to breathe, example, vinyl. Do not choose masks that have exhalation valves or vents, which allow the particles to escape. And do not use masks that are intended for healthcare workers, including N95s. Those are in great shortage, and we do need to take care of our healthcare workers who are taking care of our COVID-19 patients. So I will now demonstrate how to safely take off a mask by the ear loops. It is not going to hang on my ear or under my chin. I will fold it so all the germs are contained and put it on a paper bag. Social distancing will be 6 feet, as we said. It will be maintained to the maximum extent practicable in instructional and non-instructional rooms. We will maintain that social distancing during transitions in common areas, while wearing masks, and for the times teachers and staff that you may have to get closer to somebody than 6 feet, there is a face shield provided by the district for each of you, and you may don that on top of your face mask. Plexiglass shields will be in high traffic areas like the main offices and the security desks. Controlled movement patterns. Each school has a pandemic response team. Will look at the age group of their students and the layout of their schools to decide what the controlled movements will be. Examples are possibly one-way stairwells as applicable, and certainly maybe some one-way hallways or social distancing on either side with directional lines. Students will have assigned entrance and exits. There will be signs reminding them about staying 6 feet apart, about wearing masks, about hand hygiene, about respiratory etiquette, covering their coughs. Additional hand sanitizing stations will be available for hand hygiene. They will be in many more places than you've seen before, at entrances, exits, near classrooms, near bathrooms, near lunchrooms, and soap and water and paper towels will also, the amount will be increased in places where there are sinks. For cleaning, custodians will clean and disinfect rooms every night. There will also be increased cleaning and disinfecting schedules throughout the day for high-touch services like doorknobs and light switches. Bathrooms will be sanitized daily using EPA, Environmental Protection Agency protocols, and HEPA filters will be used in air ventilation systems. I will leave that for a separate slide and some experts on that. Next slide. All right, health and wellness protocol. This is so very important. Parents, we trust you. Teachers, we trust you. We need you to come to school healthy. Please take your temperature before you come to school. Parents, take the temperature of your children. Please do a symptom check. Why are we asking you to do it instead of herding the kids outside the school waiting to have their temperature taken? The reason is because the CDC and the New Jersey Department of Health do not recommend universal symptom screening to be done at schools. Instead, parents and caregivers, we strongly encourage you to monitor your children for signs and symptoms of illness, take their temperature. You are the first line for assessing your children's illness. So thank you in advance for doing that. We will ask you to sign an agreement that you will do this every day. The parent agreement of compliance to COVID-19 guidelines is filled with information and resources. Please read it before you sign it. It does need to be signed before your child can return hybrid. We would like it to be signed by January 11th, and it is found on the parent portal. So another reminder, get onto the parent portal, please. Make sure that you have access. If you don't, here is the way that you can get help to get that access. Teachers and staff members, you will sign once an electronic form to let us know that you are going to come to school healthy. We want you well, and we want you at home if you aren't well. This is just a picture of the parent agreement letter. You'll see that it is filled with information. It does have the 12 symptoms of COVID-19, which I will repeat when I come back at a different slide. And this will be required. And the other thing I do want to tell you that is on this is if your child does test positive for COVID-19, please email your principal. That is the same for teachers. And next slide. Okay, meals and food services. If there is a breakfast program in a school, the individual school will make sure that our mitigating strategies are followed. That is social distancing, students facing the same way. There will be no more buffet style or self-service. There will not be sharing food, hand washing, of course. An allergy-aware table or allergy-aware area will be available if food anywhere in the any program in the building. Lunch programs will be before dismissal in a bag and a grab-and-go type style. And for families that do not, for children that don't go to school on a certain day, you can still get your lunch at the designated location each day. This is important. Food celebrations, including birthdays, holidays, or achievements, will be discontinued in the classroom. And of course, they will be cleaning and disinfecting. Next slide. Recess and physical education. Recess, depending upon weather and the schedule and the school and what phase we're in, will look different. But right now, there will be no recess because we are in a 4-hour day. Physical education, when PE is incorporated into the schedule, then students will be encouraged to wear comfortable clothing and footwear because, especially in secondary schools, the locker rooms will not be open to change. They will be discouraged from sharing equipment, and any equipment that must be shared will be disinfected in between use. There will be movement opportunities and, weather permitting, outdoor experiences for the kids. Extracurricular activities and athletics. We'll start with South Orange Maplewood School District will have to cancel field trips, assemblies, and other large gatherings. There are already opportunities for clubs and activities. So please make sure that you log on to your school's websites to know what they are. They are already happening online, plays and other clubs. Winter sports are supposed to start in January. And again, social distancing and cleaning time and hand hygiene as we do. Next slide. Transportation. Students will wear masks on the bus, and a transportation aide will be assigned to each bus, being responsible for students to ensure safety protocols, wipe down seats, and seatbelts and handrails. Buses will be disinfected each time they return to the bus yard for morning routes and afternoon routes. And the last one is visitors. Visitors are not permitted to come to the building. What returning to school will look like will be very different, and we will miss the visitors who come to the building. But they may not enter unless they are essential visitors, such as emergency and law enforcement personnel in their official capacity, DCP&P personnel, health department personnel. The principal may admit a visitor by appointment if the principal determines that that visit is necessary. And in that case, visitors will wear masks and have their temperature taken and also be asked some exposure questionnaires. Food delivery and other non-essential deliveries will not be allowed. And now I will turn it back to Dr. Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Nurse Porter, for sharing such important information with our community. We will now shift to the very important question of what could cause our schools to close after reopening in a hybrid. We have previously shared this information that the closure of our schools is a health determination. Once we are open in our hybrid methodology, our local Department of Health and our state Department of Health are the triggers for closing our schools due to a possible COVID concern. This matrix represents information that is shared with school districts and also with our Department of Health. As you can see, there are different levels of concern. They move from low risk to moderate risk to high risk to very high risk. This is a formula that is maintained by our Department of Health based on information on COVID positive cases in our state, region, and townships. This slide is showing you examples of scenarios that could cause a school closure. These scenarios include, of course, confirmed cases within a class or within a school. Again, this information was previously shared, and we want to make sure that you are aware that it is available for your consideration. So recently we've received questions around some really key considerations. And out of respect for our community, we want to make sure that we respond to these questions directly. The first question that has come to our attention numerous times from concerned families in our districts is, why can't we have a 5-day per week hybrid like a neighboring district? And the answer to this question really centers on 3 major areas: transportation, social distance mandates, and of course, custodial disinfection that is required for us to stay healthy and safe. Transportation. This is a major challenge. The district that has a 5-day design that is a neighbor to us, their elementary design is based on a walking design. They have no transportation, no bus routes occurring at this time. This allows for a 5-day consideration. We have, on the other hand, a robust transportation system for our elementary schools via a vendor that we contract with. We would have to double our transportation offerings, and some students would have to board a bus for 30 minutes or so round trip for an instructional day of just 2.5 hours. That's an important consideration. The district that you're referencing, their elementary AM and elementary PM sessions are 2.5 hours. This would require that bus routes be redesigned, and our entire transportation design would have to be rebid through our county office. We are bound to offer transportation to families based on legal mandates. These include the number of miles that students are away from. This includes the number of miles that students live from their school buildings. It also includes special education programming. And there are other policy requirements that mandate some of our students receive transportation. We simply cannot ask families to go without their transportation. It is literally illegal for us to do so. Another key consideration is social distance via COVID capacity. We have measured our rooms to determine the new social distancing capacity. We cannot deviate from that number as it allows for the 6 feet requirement that Nurse Porter just referenced. Even if only 6 or 8 students are in a singular A cohort, we are bound to have space in case parental requests shift from our initial estimate. When estimating the cost of a 5-day hybrid methodology, there are many considerations that we've already covered. A 5-day elementary hybrid methodology includes a 2.5-hour AM cohort and also a 2.5-hour PM cohort for our elementary students. For our district to consider a 5-day hybrid methodology, the cost would be well over $1 million. And that cost does not include the disinfection of our buildings in between the hybrid groups daily. It would also require a significant increase of our custodial services to be able to maintain the safety of our buildings. It's also noted that families still have the legal option to select an all virtual approach for their children. All of these factors and many more are the reason that the vast majority of districts, especially those our size, have gone with an approach very similar to the one that we've shared. We've also heard from families who have a very simple question. Can my virtual learning experience stay as it is? We've heard from families who say that they are in a groove and things are going well, and they're very concerned. There's lots of anxiety around, if I select all virtual, will my students be losing momentum? Will they lose consistency once our hybrid launches? Because their teacher will now have students who are in person to also engage and educate along with those who are following the broadcast at home. So families who have asked this question, this very thoughtful question, can virtual learning stay as is? We totally understand this question, and we're going to include some key components of this in our parental survey. But there are some very important caveats that everyone has to understand about this question. The only way that we could keep your virtual learning static as you have experienced it in the first marking period would be to establish all virtual teachers. These all virtual teachers will be dedicated to all virtual students. But what does that mean? This would mean that we would have to undoubtedly have a reassignment of some students and some teachers. And we 100% understand that that could be a serious emotional hurdle. We're not saying that all students would have to shift from their teachers, but the survey results would lead us in determining what a all virtual teacher cohort and an all virtual student connection would mean. Students would also most likely have different classmates if we were to shift to do all we could to keep your virtual learning as is. Because there will be classmates who they have now whose parents would perhaps select a hybrid approach. And if all virtual students are together with an all virtual teacher, obviously the hybrid students would not be a part of that. And we know that many of our students have friends who they see every day in their current setting. That's a key consideration. And lastly, for us to keep your virtual approach identical to the way it is now, families who select this option would be mandated to stay with this selection for the duration of our school year, as it would drive the possibility of other considerations for social distancing, classroom designs, etc. We would have to adjust that based on these selections. So again, we wanted to make sure that we're very clear in responding to this very thoughtful question to let you know what those key considerations would be. June of 2019, our district received authorization to fund a capital plan. The capital plan was to address many health and safety facility issues and to address instructional space requirements. During discussions, it was noted that many of the district's HVAC systems were old and did not meet modern air exchange standards. The capital plan included replacement of our existing systems. And then, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic arrived. I'd like to introduce to you our school business administrator, Mr. Paul Roth.
Good afternoon. I am Paul Roth, School Business Administrator for the South Orange Maplewood School District. I'm here today with Anthony Catana from Spiesel Architectural Groups to discuss the HVAC and classroom unit events within our school facilities. In response to the pandemic, the New Jersey Department of Education released guidance for schools to reopen back in June 2020. The guidance provided for facilities is schools and districts must ensure that their indoor facilities have adequate ventilation, including operational heating and ventilation systems where appropriate. That's about as specific as the state guidance was. They added a little bit more, stating recirculated air must have a fresh air component. They didn't specify how much. Open windows if AC is not provided, and filters for AC units must be maintained and changed according to manufacturer recommendations. August 2020, the district released its reopening plan and committed to install HEPA filters in existing ventilation systems and install Odorox machines in bathrooms, gymnasiums, cafeterias, etc., large common areas. During the October 19th Board of Education meeting, after verification from the facility department lead, it was shared that classroom unit vents were serviced and filters installed. Unfortunately, the district's inspection revealed that this was not true. The district immediately notified the community. Since that time, the district directed an HVAC vendor to check each unit, order appropriate filters, and perform repairs. The work is expected to be complete early January. The caveat is this is subject to supply deliveries and the rate at which the manufacturer can repair motors. The district's architect Spiesel Architectural Group was commissioned to assess the systems and report progress of work. The architect conducted these inspections during the week of December 7th. This was to serve as a snapshot to inform the progress of current work and determine if any additional issues needed to be addressed. The architect will be scheduled to perform an additional inspection of work as the project draws to completion and prior to school's reopening. At this time, I'd like to introduce Tony Catana from Spiesel Architectural Groups to discuss what they found and their findings during the classroom inspections. Tony, it's all yours.
This assessment was conducted with facility staff. Each unit was opened to reveal the interior of the unit, and each filter was examined for the type and condition. Units were checked for level of cleanliness and operation. This evaluation was undertaken in an effort to characterize the condition of the existing ventilation systems within each classroom and learning spaces, including but not limited to the status of each unit, its cleanliness, and the condition and type of filter. The preliminary assessment identified deficiencies as summarized below under each heading: operation of the unit, filter status, cleanliness of the unit, outside air. Some motors were recently removed and sent out for repair. Units of this age were designed to provide about 5 CFM per occupant instead of the 15 CFM per occupant in today's code. The majority of these units have digital controls that were added some years ago but are not working properly. It is likely the units that we show as not running shut down when the temperature of the room is met. It is likely that all of the units run sporadically, and there is little to no control over having the fans run, with or without the heat running. These units are mostly scheduled to be replaced as part of the capital plan. Each unit was inspected to determine the type, quality, and age of the filter. The majority of the filters were either temporary or non-existent. Many of the existing filters were not meant for the unit they are in. They were cut, taped together, or overlapped. Many of the filters were not installed correctly. Only a small portion of filters were acceptable with a heavy-duty or MERV 8 filter. It is our understanding that all the filters will be replaced within the next month. Each unit was inspected to determine the cleanliness of the unit. It is very subjective, as it appears that all the units were vacuumed and the majority of the dirt and debris removed. The units that are marked as unclean should have additional cleaning done, both on the exterior and interior of the units. The majority of these units provide outside air to some level. It was normal to set dampers to provide 10% while in operation. There currently is no real control over the amount of outside air that is provided. In some cases, it is a fixed damper, likely set to 10%, and in others, it is mechanically controlled by temperature. There are several that have had the outside grill blocked off, probably due to the fact that they are fully open and provide too much outside air, causing the room to be cold.
So at this point, work will continue to repair remaining motors. Filters are expected to arrive in early January, and then they will be installed. Note that the highest rated filter that the unit is rated for would be used. Our units do not support MERV 13 filters. Univents will be adjusted to keep the univent motors running to maximize the supply of fresh air. An additional inspection will be scheduled prior to the reopening of school.
Hello, my name is Julie Porter. I am the South Mountain Annex nurse and also the school nurse leader. And I will give you health and safety updates. First of all, your child will be screened at home by your parents and caregivers, and we will ask you to take their temperature and check their symptoms at home before they come to school. Teachers and staff, you will check yourselves, temperature and symptoms before you come to school. We will send you information on what the symptoms are and ask you to e-sign an agreement of compliance of COVID-19 guidelines. Sign it once, and please come to school well. We'll go over the symptoms soon in this presentation. Please all staff come to school feeling well and no one come to school feeling sick. Over on the right, you'll see the signs and symptoms of COVID-19. I'm sure you've seen them before. Any of these symptoms, please stay home. I will read them. Fever, 100 degrees or over, chills, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body ache, headache, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion or runny nose, nausea or vomiting, and diarrhea. If anybody has these symptoms when they come to school, then they will be safely and respectfully isolated from others. Staff will go home. If staff needs help getting home, we'll of course help with that. Students will stay in isolation in the nurse's office, and parents will pick up their ill children immediately. We will give you written instructions on why your child is going home and the return to school criteria as decided by the Department of Health and the CDC. Very important, the district procedures. If a school district becomes aware that an individual who has spent time in the district tests positive for COVID-19, the principal and the superintendent will immediately notify the local health department. The local health department will give us our instructions based on the latest guidance, based on the latest transmission, and we will give prompt communication to the community as to whether or not we are quarantining, isolating, or if there are any closures. The health department will contact trace. They will contact anybody who is COVID positive and then call the people who they may have been in contact with. The health department will give us the next steps as to any school closures or any quarantining, and we will be clear with our readmittance policies to the community when it is okay to come back. This is a pretty picture of what I just said. It is very important that the blue box at the top starts with the individual who tests positive for COVID-19 must email the principal to let the principal know so that we can get all of this contact tracing started by the Department of Health. So teachers, please contact your principal. Parents of students who are positive for COVID-19, please contact your principal. And then we will contact the Department of Health, and the schools will help the Department of Health with contact tracing. And should be repeated, you must email your principal, and I will say that's even if you are virtual or if you are hybrid. We want to know who in our school community is COVID positive. We will keep the information, we'll look for trends, we will communicate that information, of course, maintaining confidentiality with the community. The local Department of Health will give us guidance on all of our communication with you. The second part is please answer the call. Contact tracing is done by the Department of Health. They must talk to anyone who is COVID positive to know who you have been in contact with so that we can keep those contacts safe and quarantined also. And the information that we glean will then be put out on our new SOMSD COVID-19 dashboard. So people will know, oh, by the way, none of this information is real. I think you can see that, but we will let everybody know what the transmission rate is so that the community has an idea of how things are going. And then, of course, these numbers will affect what the decisions are made as far as any kind of school closures or schools remaining open. This will be a 4-page dashboard that will be filled with information that will help us all make good decisions and keep you informed. And it will be live in January. General health and safety. So we take care of everybody here and try to keep them safe from COVID-19 with our mitigating strategies. We also understand that there are some staff and students who are at higher risk of becoming more ill from COVID-19. So there is a procedure if those medically needy staff and students may need accommodations. It's important that staff members reach out to your building principal or your supervisor. Please, you'll need, in both cases, a doctor's note, and then there'll be a discussion as to how we can accommodate and take care of you. If it's a student, then the student's doctor's note goes to the school nurse. Very important health reminders. Please get your flu vaccine. The CDC recommends that everybody 6 months or older should get their seasonal vaccine with rare exceptions. We want to make sure that your body is healthy, that it can fight off COVID-19, and we're trying not to put a strain on the healthcare system by being ill with something that can be prevented. Really important. Only preschool families have to submit flu vaccine documentation to their school nurse. The state requires that preschoolers, everybody who's under 5, has the flu vaccine. So by December 31st, please get that documentation to your preschool nurse. The other immunizations that are required by New Jersey state law that you all know of, the ones that you need to get into kindergarten or 6th grade or be newly registered, the New Jersey state has not waived them, has not extended them, and your school nurse has been in touch with you. So if you haven't heard from your school nurse, you are up to date. Thank you. If you have heard from your school nurse, in order to not be excluded from school, you do have to have your immunizations in. And then I want to remind you that while we practice behaviors in school that prevent the spread of COVID-19, please continue to practice those at home. That would be 6 feet distancing, hand hygiene, cover your cough or sneeze, keep your social gatherings small. There is websites both for Maplewood and South Orange that are really important. Their pages are so full of information on how to take care of yourselves and resources. I am now going to introduce Ms. Candace Davenport. She is the Maplewood Department of Health Officer. And after that, you will hear from Dr. Alegria, who is the Assistant Superintendent for Special Services. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Candace Davenport, and I'm the Health Officer, Public Health Nursing Supervisor, and Health Educator for the Maplewood Public Health Division. And I'll be giving you an update on the Maplewood cases of COVID, as well as on behalf of the Village of South Orange. Next slide. To give you a larger context, in the state of New Jersey, our transmission rate is 1.13. Our New Jersey state positivity rate is 11%, and that's as of December 10th of this year. However, in the Northeast, our region percent positivity rate is 12%. So the state's current COVID-19 activity level is high. In Maplewood, our cumulative cases as of December 14th is 650. This is an increase of 70 cases just in the mid-month of December. In November, we ended with 580 cases, and that's an increase of 165 cases from October when we had 415 cases. So our numbers and our volume of cases has increased as we've gone into the fall. Most Maplewood positive COVID cases are within the age range of 30 to 49 years of age. Next slide, please. So for the Village of South Orange, I'll be presenting on behalf of my colleague, John Festa, who's the health officer in South Orange. In South Orange, they have cumulative cases for COVID of 356 positive COVID cases. That's cumulative. This is an increase of 108 cases for the month of November. And most South Orange positive cases are between the ages of 19 to 50 years of age for the month of November. So just some messages that we're going to leave you with from your local health departments. We both just want to say thank you for all doing your part in modeling good, healthy behavior and teaching your children the importance of wearing their face masks, washing your hands regularly, practicing social distancing, and covering your coughs and sneezes. We know that this is not an easy time. And we just want you to know that everything though that we have done all together as a community has helped and worked to keep our numbers and the risk of exposure to COVID-19 low. So I also want to say that we're going through what we recognize is an extraordinary and historic time, but it's these simple acts of wearing a face mask or staying at home if you're sick or just covering your cough that are really making a difference. And it's these simple acts that will show when we look back on it that we put the health and safety of our kids and our community first because we're all doing our part. In addition, as we start and reopen school, please make sure your children's vaccinations are up to date. Please keep your holiday celebrations small or to your immediate household. And please read and sign the parent letter of agreement for compliance with COVID-19 guidelines. It has important information. If everyone sticks to the agreement and we all do our part, our children will go back to school safely. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Hello, my name is Dr. Melody Alegria, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Special Services, here to provide some special services updates to the community. Just wanted to provide some updates and reminders on where we are currently with our Child Study Team services. Our Child Study Team evaluations will continue to be conducted in person. These evaluations have been conducted at the high school since the beginning of the summertime. However, as we transition back into schools on a hybrid plan, those evaluations will be done at the assigned school that your child would normally attend. Our Child Study Team meetings will continue to be held virtually. Those meetings have been conducted through Google Meets, through phone, through WebEx, through various means electronically, and so we will continue to have those meetings virtually. Any Child Study Team referrals, they will continue to be sent to our referrals at somsd.k12.nj.us email address, as we know that there are still some students who may be struggling during this time and families wondering how to receive support through the Child Study Team. I encourage you to please reach out to that email address if you find that your child is struggling or maybe has a disability that needs to be addressed. All of our in-person speech, PT, and OT will continue to be available on a case-by-case basis and in alignment with students' IEP goals and also dependent on scheduling. Currently, we've been providing some physical therapy and occupational therapy in person at Columbia High School. Those services would then transition to the school that your child is assigned to. Our paraprofessionals, so some additional updates. Our paraprofessionals, if that your student has a paraprofessional indicated in their IEP, whether it's a shared paraprofessional, a classroom paraprofessional, or an individual paraprofessional, that person would still continue to support your child virtually and in person. If your family chooses the fully virtual option, the paraprofessional would continue to provide virtual supports. If your student chooses the hybrid, or if your family chooses the hybrid for your student, then they would receive supports both in person and also virtually on the days that your child is virtual. Our speech services, physical therapy, occupational therapy, all of those services will continue to be provided virtually and also in person. This will depend on scheduling. However, if your family opts for your child to be in a fully virtual setting, they can choose to come in for some of their related services. That will, however, depend on the scheduling that we are able to work through with the therapist, but it is an option and something that we will work with families in trying to get scheduled. Evidence-based reading, EBR, that will be in person. It may also be provided virtually in some situations. However, we do have EBR that will be provided to families as indicated in the student's IEP. School-based counseling, if that's also something that's indicated in your child's IEP, they will receive this support virtually and also in person. Again, that will be dependent on the schedule, but if your child is a fully virtual student, they can come in just for the counseling portion if you so choose, and we will work with families on that scheduling option as well. Some additional updates regarding our social work and our social emotional supports. As we all know, this is a very trying time, and so it's more important than ever to really focus on providing additional social emotional supports and social work supports to families. And so we're very sensitive to that. So here are some updates that our social workers have been working on. They've been offering virtual social work and counselor-led class meetings, doing some restorative circles work. They've been working with students to process some of the changes that are related to the pandemic. We've had different family dynamic changes. We've had some students dealing with loss and grief. And so our social workers have really been working with families and students around some of those very tough topics. We've also been working on an online and buddy mentor program. We've had some virtual student forums to discuss and process events. We have also created a call line for families in need of supports. And we also have our district mental health page, which provides tons of resources for families in need. In addition to our social work updates for students and families, they've also been providing supports to staff by writing and providing scripts for teachers to use in terms of return back to school, any sudden reclosing, and also providing scripts on dealing with difficult questions that students might ask regarding the current pandemic. So as we're looking at special education programming, there is a few questions that we've received in terms of the 4 days a week versus the 2 days a week programming. 4 days a week programming would be for our students in a self-contained classroom from grades preschool through 8th grade. If your child is in a preschool disabled class, an LLD, language learning disability class, an autism or an ABA program, a multiple disabilities class, or a BD, a behavioral disabilities classroom, they would automatically be eligible for the 4 days a week in-person programming. If your child is receiving resource room services for multiple subjects in the K to 8 grades, they too would be eligible for the 4-day in-person programming. The 2-day-a-week in-person programming is for our students in inclusion classrooms and students with a single subject resource room programming. As we all strive to provide as many in-person learning opportunities as possible, this is the plan that we are working with, and as we're able to increase our in-person opportunities for students and families, we will be sure to reach out and send that information along to families. 504 plans. Any student who has a 504 plan continues to be eligible to receive services in accordance with their 504 plans, whether they're virtual, hybrid, or coming in for just a related service that is indicated in their 504 plan. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that please contact your 504 case manager if there are any questions around the implementation of the 504 plan. Just like IEPs, 504 plans are being implemented to the greatest extent possible during this time. And I want to make sure that everyone understands that that support continues to be available even through a hybrid model of educational schooling. We all know that the YMCA has been a big help district-wide as we are working with families who may need additional childcare considerations. And so we've continued to work on that partnership. Through that partnership, the YMCA will continue to offer some additional services to families whose students are in our hybrid plan. And so any families who are currently linked with the YMCA will automatically get information from the YMCA on their next steps regarding the hybrid plan. However, if you're interested in the South Mountain YMCA, I encourage you to reach out to your student's social worker in their building, and they will be able to provide assistance and link you up with the YMCA as a possible opportunity for childcare for your student. And I now present to you Mr. Keith Bonds, our Director of Technology.
Hello, my name is Keith Bonds. I am the Director of Technology for the South Orange Maplewood School District. Today, I will provide you updates related to technology support upgrades that have taken place in order to support hybrid learning. These topics include things like internet and network connectivity upgrades, our Chromebook inventory update initiative, and PowerSchool, some notes about PowerSchool as a whole. In order to determine if our infrastructure could handle a return to in-person learning, and more specifically, a hybrid model, we needed to make estimates in terms of building capacity. We assumed that the building at any given time would have 50% capacity of students and teachers attending in person. While this number is not 100% accurate, it gave us a starting point, a maximum capacity to work with. We then took a look at each of our switches, our network closets, and our overall throughput, and determined that we needed to make some upgrades. These upgrades took place in the form of internet connectivity between our core data center and our internet service provider. Previously, we utilized about 1 gigabit per second of internet connectivity synchronously, upload and download, between our core data center and our ISP. Assuming that we have 50% capacity at any given day, and assuming that all administrators and all teachers are in person, we maximize that throughput quite a bit quicker than we normally would. Our internet connectivity needs explode to well over 6 gigabits per second. While this is not an exact measurement, because not everybody is utilizing that internet connectivity every single second of the day, we realized that we needed to upgrade our internet service very quickly. We worked with our internet service provider and maximized our connectivity to their CO and NORC. So we have upgraded from 1 gigabit per second to well over 5 gigabits per second. In addition, we have some quality of service, we have some load balancer in place, and we are shaping traffic based upon certain firewall rules. All of this is to help support the hybrid learning model. We're assuming roughly 4 megabits per second for each teacher of internet connectivity needed, which would equate to a roughly 3 megs per second for video conferencing at a pretty decent quality, and 1 megabit per second if they were going to utilize anything like web browsing while they were also doing video conferencing. This chart shows some of those numbers, and you can see that we've included student bandwidth requirements as well. So we're assuming at a maximum, if students were to utilize devices and they needed access to the internet, they would not be video conferencing for the most part. They would be utilizing web pages, Google Drive, Google Docs, Canvas, things along those lines. So on average, 1 megabit per second, maybe 2. A lot of these pages, web pages, are light and do not require constant bandwidth consumption. Video conferencing was the driver for upgrading our bandwidth connectivity. So we made all of those upgrades, and we work with the provider to ensure that we have that throughput. On top of that, we surveyed building administrators to determine any dead spots in their buildings. After we received feedback from the building administrators, we performed walkthroughs of each of these locations and did a wireless survey. We determined the dead spots in these locations, and we performed wireless access point upgrades. These wireless access points that we brought in or purchased are Wave 2 802.11 AC access points. What that essentially means is that they have greater coverage and higher density. They can support more devices, and their signal coverage is a little bit greater. So we recognized very quickly, while everybody knows, the problem areas in buildings, once we start maximizing the use of the wireless technology that's in place, additional dead spots may become apparent. So with that in mind, we ordered a number of spare access points to have on hand. 1, to help replace access points that fail quickly, and 2, to expand coverage for trouble spots that we may not be aware of and students and teachers may not be aware of right now. So the combination of upgrading our internet bandwidth, in addition to maintaining and replacing dead hotspots and replacing faulty hotspots that may be working but might have signal drops or might only allow 1 or 2 connections at a given time, allowed us to bolster our network connection. Again, we are at the maximum available throughput for our core switch in our data center to our ISP, meaning that if we want to go above this 5 gigabits per second synchronous connection, we would need to change out hardware, network hardware, very expensive hardware. So a brief update regarding our Chromebooks. We are a district with over 8,000 devices, laptops, iPads, and Chromebooks. Chromebooks make up a good number of that fleet. Close to 6,800 devices are Chromebooks. And almost 3,000 of those devices were considered no longer supported by Google. They were end of life. They reached their end of life at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. And the district planned to replace those devices over the summer. Those 3,000 devices were ordered, a replacement for those devices were ordered in May. The district ordered 2,300 of those new Chromebooks to replace the end-of-life devices on May 2020. Unfortunately, many districts were experiencing similar concerns about their technology hardware, the Chromebooks, and planned to provide some type of either hybrid or remote instruction come fall 2020. So a lot of districts ramped up their purchasing of Chromebooks. The supply chain became constricted. Suppliers could not provide enough Chromebooks to school districts in a timely fashion, and orders began to slip consistently. Our orders slipped from May 2020 with an anticipated arrival of July all the way to November. We received our 2,300 Chromebooks at the end of November. Those Chromebooks are now in our IT department and are being prepared for distribution to support hybrid learning. During the initial COVID-19 pandemic, the state and other entities have provided school districts with COVID relief funds. The district utilized these monies to purchase 1,600 additional devices on top of the 2,300 Chromebooks that were ordered in May. Those two orders were placed in August and October of 2020. We anticipate we will receive those devices sometime in the next 2 to 3 months. Again, supply chain issues are a concern, and that number can obviously slip based upon availability. While on the slide itself, I show that there is a no ETA. Suppliers do not want to be held to a timeline at this point, but typically it is taken now at this point 3 months, 2 months to receive equipment for orders that are placed today. So we anticipate we're going to receive these devices within the next 2 to 3 months. During our remote learning phase, beginning of March through now, any family member could reach out to info@somsd.k12.nj.us and request a Chromebook. These Chromebooks are helpful if a family does not have a device at home to engage in remote learning, or if they don't have enough devices, they have multiple students and only one device. We will continue that going forward. We have approximately given out 2,300 Chromebooks since March 2020. A lot of these devices are being used every day by families, and we continue to receive requests for additional devices. Family situations and circumstances change, their dynamics change, job availability changes, or devices at home break, and families are experiencing the same challenges purchasing consumer Chromebooks and laptops like districts are. So often we receive requests from families to borrow equipment from the district. On top of the 2,300 Chromebooks, we have provided 172 hotspots to families. These hotspots have been offered to families and are being held for families. A lot of times families do not have access to internet at home, and it's very difficult for some of these family members, some of these families to find a way to obtain the hotspots. So we work with families directly, but there's been 172 hotspots that have been distributed or allocated and reserved specifically for families that have requested them, either through the return to school form that was filled out in early August, or by emailing info@somsd.k12.nj.us. These hotspots were procured in partnership with the Achieve Foundation and the Parenting Center, along with district operating funds. On top of the hotspots, the 172 hotspots that we've given out, we still have family members that are currently waiting for a device. At present, we have 14 families that are currently waiting for a hotspot, and we continue to find resources or funding sources to help purchase additional hotspots for families. I continue to implore any family member or community member in the district who has a child in the South Orange Maplewood School District, if you need a hotspot or a Chromebook, please reach out to info@somsd.k12.nj.us. And lastly, I wanted to provide a brief note about the PowerSchool Parent Portal. PowerSchool is the district's student information system. It is utilized to keep track of grades, attendance, and a host of other data points. One aspect of the PowerSchool student information system is the parent portal. The parent portal allows parents to log into a website and view grades and information about their children. The district has customized PowerSchool a little bit to provide a form section where parents can fill out forms electronically online. During the Return to School initiative in January, parents are going to be asked to fill out various agreements and forms related to hybrid learning. Prior to the Return to School in January, we are asking that family members verify that they have access to the PowerSchool Parent Portal, and they can do that by navigating to the district website, and on the top navigation menu, select Quick Links, Parents, PowerSchool. Once you're on that page, you can log in with your login credentials. If you do not have your login credentials, or you do not remember receiving login information, or you've forgotten it and the system does not email them to you, you can reach out to Parent Portal Help at somsd.k12.nj.us. A staff member mans that email address and will respond to you with your credentials. If you're having issues logging in for various reasons, you can reach out to that Parent Portal Help email address as well, and they will get back to you with some technical assistance. It is important that parents verify that they have access to the Parent Portal prior to the start of hybrid learning. There are many forms that the district will be publishing on this platform, and they will use the system to try and keep track of who has and who hasn't completed these forms. So please make sure that you have access. And if you do not, please reach out early. As we get closer to the start of school in January, requests will increase for that Parent Portal Help email address, and response times can be impacted. While you log into the Parent Portal, please take a moment to verify your contact information. You can look at your contact information on the left navigation menu. There's a link that says contact information, and when you click on that, you will be presented with a page that lists every single contact that's associated with your children. It will show parents and guardians along with emergency contacts. We are asking that you please make sure that your contact information is up to date. If it is not, please follow the instructions on the screen to submit a contact change request. I thank you for taking this time to listen to some of these technology updates. I now would like to present Ms. Stacey Robinson, our Director of Human Resources.
Good day, SOMA family. My name is Stacey Robinson, Director of Human Resources for South Orange Maplewood Public Schools. As we proceed through this most challenging season, the Human Resource Department is working diligently to provide talent needed to sustain our instructional programs. To date, there has been 55 actions derived from mostly COVID-related accommodation requests, with 11 requests resulting in a permanent separation. While teachers are the largest population affected by the accommodation request and/or medical leave, The work from home accommodation has allowed for the continuity of instruction. In addressing permanent separations and medical leaves that will most probably extend into our reopening, it should be noted that the impact by school is minimal. The Human Resources Department is diligently working with administrators and department heads to secure the needed talent to replace employees retiring and resigning. All anticipated vacancies have been posted and advertised. Additionally, each elementary school is being assigned 2 permanent daily substitutes. The middle school will be assigned an additional substitute teacher for a total of 3 daily permanent substitutes. All substitute teachers will be assigned through June 30th, 2021. The Human Resources Department will work feverishly to secure all necessary resources to continue our excellent educational programming. Next up will be district administrators who will discuss instructional models and scheduling.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Matthew Friedman. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction in the South Orange Maplewood School District. In this section, we'll be talking about instructional methods and scheduling. Throughout this section, we're going to learn about what hybrid learning is in the district. We will talk about the expectations of hybrid learning in both elementary and the middle levels, along with ELL and special services. We will also talk about the potential virtual learning options students will have as well. In this first slide, this is a visualization, a breakdown of the instructional models that we have to offer in the district moving forward. This is something that you should have all seen as parents and community members back in August. And the one big reminder that I want to make sure everyone remembers is that on Monday, January 4th, you need to have your return to school preference into the district. So what is hybrid learning? Hybrid learning is a combination of face-to-face instruction and online learning. As you can see from the visual here, the meeting in the middle between both face-to-face classroom instruction and online learning is hybrid learning in its purest form. It reduces the number of students in the building, keeping some students online and having some students face-to-face. We're going to be working in smaller cohort groups, so students will be both during the week, either face-to-face in person with us or online in a synchronous and asynchronous format at home. It provides an opportunity for individualized learning experiences for all students. It promotes collaboration in online discussion amongst students, and it truly allows for differentiated modes of interacting with course content throughout the day. So both in the face-to-face setting and in an online setting, hybrid learning really focuses on all those modalities. So what should you expect from the hybrid learning model, both as a parent and a student moving forward? So all in-person and virtual students can expect the following in some way, shape, or form. Daily live instruction with their teacher, live mini lessons or new learning taking place both in the face-to-face setting and in the virtual setting. Opportunities for independent learning experiences, whether that is one-on-one interactions with the teachers or small group work going on with your classmates. Continued collaboration through our learning management system, Canvas, and or our video management system, Google Meets. Both whole group and small group instruction for virtual learners on a daily basis. And the one thing that I want to stress is that every Friday, all learners in the district will be virtual. That will allow our teachers to work one-on-one with students on that day because all students will be in a virtual setting, and we can customize the types of learning experiences that happen on that day across the district. So looking at both the pre-K, elementary, and middle levels, what should you expect from the hybrid learning model? So in both pre-K and K-8 settings, in-person learning will take place 2 days per week, depending on the cohort that your child is in. They will attend 2 days a week, and we'll get to the details in a few minutes. Virtually, the students will attend 3 days a week. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, on Friday, all students in the district will be virtual. K-8 students can also expect to, as I mentioned, be in 2 cohorts. Right now, we are calling them the A and B cohorts, and that could, the naming possibly could change, so be on the lookout for that. And students will be separated into cohorts alphabetically based on the actual number of students per letters in the alphabet. One thing that I do want to mention, as a district, we're being very mindful of accommodating family schedules. So special consideration will be given to families with multiple siblings, families where siblings might have different last names and different circumstances. So if you do have a concern, I urge you to contact the district immediately. With ELL and special services, these students will attend 4 days per week. Friday, as I mentioned, all students will be virtual. And as I mentioned in the last slide, we will continue to accommodate these families as well with special considerations. And I urge you to contact the district so we can address your individual needs. So this is just a visual interpretation of everything that I discussed. In the yellow, you can see, yellow and blue, you can see the cohort groups, both A and B. Students will attend, if you're in cohort A, you'll attend 2 days a week, and then you'll be 3 days virtual. But you will stay with your cohort, and this is something that we will not only post on the website, but you will be able to see moving forward as a parent or guardian in the district. Now, if you happen to decide to stay virtual with us, our students will participate in virtual instruction 5 days a week. Some of the opportunities that our virtual students will continue to have are both synchronous and asynchronous learning, meaning that there will be live virtual instruction. You also have synchronous or asynchronous opportunities where you'll have pre-recorded instruction. You'll continue to have teacher-led small groups along with independent practice and time for students to really go off on their own, do things independently, and work at their own pace. The last thing I want to mention is that if you start out in one modality and you want to change instructional models, here's what you need to expect. And I'm not going to spend the time reading the slide right now. It will be posted with the rest of the presentation along with the recording, and you can read it at your leisure. But please make sure that if you are changing, to contact the district and work with us to make sure that we can make those changes and accommodate those. Now I'll be turning it over to Mr. Leroy Johnson, Supervisor of Special Education, where he will talk about pre-K schedule.
Dr. Friedman, thank you very much. And families, welcome, and thank you for your time spending with us today. The preschool program's hybrid learning plan has been established based on best practices outlined by the guidance from the New Jersey Department of Education's Early Childhood Department, as well as the Tools of the Mind curriculum developers. So this hybrid schedule encompasses a full preschool day and has been designed with a delicate balance of diverse learning approaches. Students will have the opportunity to engage in learning through a mixture of in-person instruction, independent practice, live instruction, pre-recorded videos, and arranged live support. So while we recognize a curriculum as a guide, it's important to note that during the first few weeks of hybrid learning, the South Orange and Maplewood School District, the preschool program portion has embedded within the curriculum an instructional approach that will focus on the social, emotional learning and needs of our students during this most fluid of times. Our hybrid daily schedule is a continuum of learning that is designed to meet each individual student where they are and differentiate learning to both introduce new skills and build on current skills based on preschool state standards. So as we look at the hybrid schedule, many of these activities may look familiar. However, please note our methodology as it pertains to how each student will have access to learning virtually. This is identified in the parentheses under the virtual learning column. Based on stakeholder feedback, we have arranged our daily schedule to optimize student learning by engaging our students in more structured lessons in the morning, with more flexibility given to families during the afternoon. So I'd like to take a moment to specifically go through the meaning of each instructional approach. So in-person can be recognized as our traditional way of learning. Students will physically report to school and have face-to-face learning with their teachers and parents. Independent practice is where teachers will provide students with structured activities to engage in at home aside from the live instruction and in-person learning. So live instruction, this is a time where students can engage in virtual learning that is live streamed from the classroom. This will be done with the teacher and or paraprofessional. And pre-recorded videos are lessons that are recorded in advance, which can be accessed remotely at leisure. So finally, arranged live support is a component where teachers will work with families in arranging a time where additional virtual support can be provided. And these are things, for example, check-ins, support with virtual platforms and navigating through technology, addressing the social emotional needs that may be appropriate, and other instructional lessons or support. A great deal of work has been done in collaboration with neighboring school districts, consulting with NJDOE and curriculum developers, and are consistent with other preschools. So this concludes the overview of the preschool day, and teachers will, of course, continue working with students and families as we transition into our hybrid methodology. They're also prepared to answer any specific questions you may have regarding the specific activities and lessons that will take place throughout the day. And please note that while plans have been thoroughly thought out in collaboration and are solidified for reopening, we will continue to review the data and feedback and consider this information when making adjustments to our preschool learning approach, just to ensure it meets the needs of our SOMEA students and families. So we're going to now turn it over to the elementary portion of the schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Hello, everyone. I'm Ann Bodnar, Director of Curriculum and Instruction. I am going to explain the elementary and middle school schedules. First of all, our elementary schools, as you know, are divided between two start times in early schools and late schools. I'm going to start with the early schools, and please pay close attention because there are a few variations in the start times for our early schools. First, South Mountain Annex will be starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. South Mountain Big School will be starting at 8:10 in the morning, and Clinton and Jefferson will continue to start at 8:05, just as they normally would do in-person learning. Students will be split into two cohorts, A and B, and then they will do Monday and Tuesday. Cohort A will be in person, and Wednesday and Thursday cohort B will be in person. The all virtual students and also our in-person students can look forward to different activities that range from independent practice to small group work, live instruction, synchronous, and recorded lessons. Every single student in early schools and late schools will have Friday a virtual day. One question that has come up is the afternoons and specials and what kindergarten through second grade students do. So we will continue to have specials for kindergarten through second grade in phase 3 of our transition to hybrid. And when the rest of the students come in at 3rd grade through 5th grade, all students will go back to their regular scheduled specials, and it will move into the mornings and afternoons. So for our late schools, Marshall, Seth Boyden, and Tuscan all start at 8:45 and will finish at 12:45. In the afternoons, all students will be working in virtual settings. Teachers will mostly be focusing on the students who were home during the day and working in small groups, one-on-one, and basically checking in with students who were home all day. For the middle school, you'll notice that school begins at 8:20 and will finish through 12:30. The periods, the order of periods per day are exactly the same as what the students are experiencing right now. There will be time at 12:30 when the students leave to go home and have lunch. And then our afternoons will continue with conference periods where students will work in small groups or one-on-one with their teachers, similar to what they are doing now. Now I'm going to hand it over to Sanchez, CHS Principal.
Good evening, parents. This is Mr. Sanchez, the principal of Columbia High School. Let's take a look at our schedule for our hybrid and virtual experience. What we wanted to do to make sure that our students who are choosing an all virtual experience, we wanted to make sure that our students still stayed in the same classes that they have had so far. And the same thing goes with our hybrid students. We didn't want to switch teachers. Therefore, we'll be running our schedule, the A-B day, as we have since September. The only difference that you will see is that we had to rearrange some of our periods because of lunches. So at Columbia High School, we run 3 lunch periods, periods 5, 6, and 7. Because we wanted to make sure that students would not be in that type of unstructured environment during the pandemic, we are bookending our A and B days with those lunch periods. So these are the most unsubscribed classes, if you will. This will allow us to stagger entrance for our students. So some students, for example, if they are off, if they have lunch during a period 6, they will be able to come in later in the day. So first, I just want to show you an example of what this schedule could look like. Again, as you can see, we are keeping the regular A day, B day format. Monday and Tuesday in a typical week would be A day, B day. Wednesday, Thursday, A day, B day. And then Friday, to match the rest of the district, we will have an asynchronous day. So if you look at the A day and a typical A day, you will see classes, again, are extended longer than we usually have them at Columbia High School. So period 1 would be from 8 to 8:50. We're going to have a 10-minute, we're going to return to that 10-minute break between classes. This will help our students in the building navigate the walks through the hallway, as well as our teachers who may have to go from one classroom to another. And then, of course, the students who are home in a different cohort or who are always home virtually will have a 10-minute break. So again, if you look at the typical A day, we go from periods 1, 2, 3. However, at 11 a.m., instead of having a period 4, we go to period 5. Again, that will allow a third of the students who are in the building at that time to leave early because they have probably a period 5 lunch. The rest of the students would stay in period 5 and would not be dismissed until 11:50. Our grab and go lunch, which will always feature the next day's breakfast, that will be available for students who are leaving at that time at 11 a.m. and of course for all students who are leaving at 11:50. Students would then have lunch at home from 12 to 12:50 and can return online at 1 a.m. for afternoon conferencing with teachers. They can meet virtually with their club advisors. They could do a plethora of activities at that point in the afternoon, but that would be fully virtual. Again, the next day on a B day, we are a little bit out of sync, right? But we're doing this so we can have students stagger in at different times. Those students who have an academic class that it starts with period 6, they'll show up at 8 a.m. However, those students who have lunch period 6 will not have to come to the building until 9 o'clock for their next academic class. So as you can see, we'll go from period 6 to period 4, period 8, period 7, again, another lunch, so we could stagger and be safe for dismissal. Students would then have lunch at home, and then period 9 will be virtual. Those students who don't have a period 9 class, it's one of the least subscribed classes and periods, can also conference with their teachers if the teachers are available and not teaching period 9. So that's exactly what the structure of the day looks like. And I do want to emphasize that those parents or students who choose to do the hybrid, this is what your schedule will look like. You will not be coming in every single day. We will have to divide the students into cohorts. We may have 2 to 3 cohorts depending on the results that are due in early January. So it's very important, please, that you complete those surveys. If, for example, if your child is in cohort 1, they will come in on the Monday, Tuesday, A and B day. They will be in the classroom with the teacher as the teacher is also instructing the cohorts that are home. And then on the next 2 days, right, which are indicated in red here, the next A and B day, then cohort 2 would come in and cohort 1 would stay home and virtually follow the lessons that are being taught in the classroom. Friday is an asynchronous day where the teacher will be able to communicate, send out activities. Students will be able to meet with their counselors or any other social planning or activities. And then when the next week begins, A day, B day, the cohorts continue to rotate. If we have just 2 cohorts, then it would be cohort 1 would return. If we have 3 cohorts, then cohort 3 would start the A, B day, and obviously cohort 1 would follow, and then 2, so on. So that's what it looks like on a given day for everyone. Now, at a more micro level, how would this maybe affect your child? So here you can see your child has pre-calculus, and he is in cohort 1, right? So he comes into the A day, he takes pre-calc, then after that, he moves on to health class, then the bell rings, he goes to US History 2, but period 4, he has a lunch. So he doesn't have to stay in the building at that point. He can go to the cafeteria, grab and go lunch, and go home. He has to be ready, of course, for 1 o'clock so he can conference with his teachers, but that's what his first day looks like. The next day, he wakes up, he's got to be here at 8 o'clock in the morning to get to physics. After that, he may have his AP language course, his French course, and then orchestra. After that, again, he has lunch, so he'll be able to leave at 11:50, but hurry up and get back home so he can take TV production virtually. Now, the next day, day 3, he will wake up at 8 o'clock to take pre-calculus, but he'll be home doing it virtually while the next cohort appears in class. So this is our plan to make sure that our students stay in the classes, they keep their connections with our incredible faculty members that they've had since September. I think it's really important to note that I will follow up with our assistant principals with a video before we return to kind of give a tour of the building, to show what logistical things we're doing to keep students safe, whether that's different doors to enter, and our hand sanitizers, our flow on our different floors and staircases. So that's going to follow, but I definitely wanted all our parents and students to see what a typical day will look like, so you can make the decision that's best for your family on whether you will be going fully virtual or coming back for a hybrid experience here at Columbia High School. If you have any questions, please reach out to me via email.
So we have some very important dates approaching. We want to remind you of our post-Town Hall live Q&A. Again, it's scheduled for Monday, December 21st at 7:30 p.m. All the pertinent information is on the slide before you. We look forward to hearing from you and hearing questions that were not addressed during this town hall. Please find below valuable resources that have been previously shared with our district families for your reference. Thank you, and on behalf of myself, our administration, and our Board of Education, thank you for giving us your time to participate in this virtual town hall experience.